So I'm going to talk about CyberPDX. This is a camp for broadening participation in cybersecurity that we run every summer, or we're trying to run every summer. And I start the camp with a quote from Barack Obama in his cybersecurity summit. And it's one of the great paradoxes that technologies that empower us can also be used to undermine us and inflict great harm. And to paraphrase him, it's more tech, more problems. And so how do we begin to solve these problems as a society? So I'm an academic, I teach, so we learn, and then we try and teach it to the next generation, and so that's what we do. And so this is the point of Gen Cyber, which is a collaboration between NSF and the NSA to build the next generation of cybersecurity professionals, and this is targeting high schools, middle schools, to try and impart some of this knowledge earlier on in the pipeline so that people are aware of that as they go and pursue perhaps an undergraduate degree. Okay, so these are camps to develop this next generation. But what does a cybersecurity person look like? My daughter is in 8th grade, and the very first thing the science teacher had her do was draw a picture of what a scientist looks like, just to expose the kind of stereotyping they might have to try and sort of like defeat that. And so I thought about, what does it look like? Like, if I ask a kid, what does a cybersecurity professional look like? They might give me this, which is, I mean, if we have a diversity problem, that's probably got to be a large part of this problem. And so this really is a bit of an enigma, because I look around this room and nobody here looks like that, which is a problem, right? So what we try and do is we try to expose them to all the different roles you could play in this discipline. So including, you could be the cryptographer. So you could be like Goldwasser and Macaulay. You could be the politician. So Ron Wyden gave the keynote 2 years ago here at BSides. You could be at that level influencing cybersecurity issues. You could be the research director. So Deborah Frink runs the research programs at PNNL. You could be the journalist. Brian Krebs, Glenn Greenwald, impacting cybersecurity through their writing. You could be the bug hunter. So Natalie Solanovich, Tavis Ormandy, you could be finding those deep vulnerabilities that nobody else can even see. You could be the filmmaker. So Alex Gibney did the 0 Days film, which is a highly influential documentary on the Stuxnet worm, or virus, or whatever malware. You could be the systems developer. So this is Jesse Frizzell, who has worked a lot on Docker, which is being used in a lot of enterprises today. You could be a television producer. How many of you know that Mr. Robot is on for another season? It's a highly interesting, 4th season, I think it was last week. You could be the professor. So Lori Craner, professor at CMU, went to the FTC, developing all sorts of interesting ideas on password security, or lack thereof. You could be the cartoonist. There's Randall Munroe influencing technical ideas using cartoons like this one down here on the bottom right. This is what I teach in my web security class. It's like, here's some entropy right here, in the bottom right. Just read this cartoon and you'll get what I'm trying to teach you, is the idea of that. Oh, and and there's the Heartbleed cartoon that also is an interesting explanation for that. You could be a cryptanalyst. So this is a book that just got released 2 years ago on the most successful codebreaker in World War I and World War II, Elizabeth Friedman. You could be the comedian. So we play clips from John Oliver, especially when he's interviewing Edward Snowden. Getting to the heart of the fact that, maybe some of the things you did helped, but maybe some of the things you disclosed might not have been appropriate to disclose. You could be the podcaster, and I know Joe is not in the room, but he just gave an interview two weeks ago on risky business, so you could be Patrick Gray or Adam Boileau. You could be the lawyer, so this is Susan Hennessy, who works on all different kinds of governmental policies and legal policies dealing with cyberspace. You could be the ethical hacker, Joanna Rakowska of Cubes and Blue Pill. You could be Tsunomo Shimomura, catching hackers like Kevin Mitnick. Or you could be an author. So this is a picture of Veronica Roth. She wrote this short story on penetration testing based on the fictional Divergent storyline. How many of you know about Divergent? If you have a kid, they'll know about it. And this is what we used for one of our threads in this camp, because we thought it was an interesting way of weaving the arts into cybersecurity. So with this in mind, how do you offer a camp that speaks to all of these diverse roles, right? What do you teach and how do you teach it? So this is what I'm going to talk about, CyberPDX. It's a one-week residential camp for introducing cybersecurity to high school students and teachers. So it's really important for us to get at the teachers because that's where your leverage point is, because they can bring that curriculum back to their schools, and then you get this sort of this beneficial effect that you can't get just by teaching students directly. So what's our approach? We have a curriculum that integrates technology and the liberal arts. We think that they go in hand, and if you were at the keynote, you'll understand some of these problems have to involve the liberal arts. Focus on collaborative, cooperative, and peer learning exercises, and not on competition, because competition does drive out a lot of people from this discipline. We have exercises that allow each student to practice different roles in cybersecurity. So they're role-playing different aspects of cybersecurity just to try them out. Who knows what's going to stick? We focus on problem-based learning, that we have exercises that are intrinsically motivating for them to want to complete. And this is something I talked about 2 years ago. The design of the crypto thread, in fact, was based on a bunch of puzzles, and who doesn't like to solve puzzles? We have multimodal instruction, so to engage like the physical learner, the visual learner, different styles of learning and teaching to engage students wherever they are, wherever they're best at learning. Scaffolded exercise, and the real important thing here is that we want these kids to feel like they're both competent and have confidence in anything that they do in the camp. The goal is to have every single camper be able to complete every single exercise in the camp. So that's where the design is really, I think, important. We inclusively target students from who are underrepresented not only in cybersecurity, but in college. So we're looking at socioeconomic diversity, we're looking at ethnic diversity, we're looking at gender diversity, and we're telling the teachers who are doing the recruiting for us, find the students who you would never think would go into cybersecurity or computer science, or even better, none of those two, or to college. Those are the people that we want in the camp. And then finally, we run alongside of this a teacher camp. And we have these teachers develop curriculum projects of their own based on the concept that have been presented to them at camp. And this allows them to own a curriculum that they can then go back to their high schools to actually teach to their students. So just to get a little bit about, more detail about what we teach in this camp, we have 4 threads. We have a cryptography and security, we have a programming thread, a filmmaking thread, and a cyber policy thread. So the cryptography and security thread, we talk about how ciphers work, how they can eventually be broken. We talk about different security tools that are used in industry and how they work. And this was something I described a couple years ago at BSides. We have this Divergent-themed capture the flag and urban race. And basically the content modules, there are 5 of them. We start with the historical impact. So we're always focusing on motivation. Why would you be interested in cryptography and security? So we do some history. We cover different ciphers in World War I, World War II, and how they really shifted the course of those 2 wars. And then we go into basic encoding, because cryptography is done in a digital domain, so we have to teach them what binary is and these sorts of things, and ASCII, and all the different ways you can encode digital information. We go to simple ciphers that can be broken fairly easily, and they sort of analyze these things and reverse engineer their encoding. We talk about modern ciphers and how, for example, public key cryptography works, and how it can be used to secure transactions over the internet. And then we talk about man-in-the-middle attacks. so that even if you do have public key cryptography, if you can't get someone's public key appropriately, and if you're in the middle, so basically the NSA program, like the Flying Pig program, we talk about how that whole thing can be subverted. And in this thread, they can now see from the beginning, sort of the initial sort of forms of cryptography all the way to modern programs that are trying to hijack the security of people. So they actually feel like they have a pretty good understanding of these concepts. So this is all built into a scaffolded CTF activity that leads to an urban race where the whole thing is role-playing inside of the Divergent plot, which is from the short story, which is a riff off of that short story. And then right at the end, they're dropped into the plot live. They're messaging this Twitter bot that's basically Cyber4, and they're trying to help this character out to save the city, so save Portland, because Portland is about to get blown up. And then the idea is that every team should be able to save the city. And so far, every team has, more or less. But they're running all over campus. Like some of the things they have to decode and solve, they're running all over the Portland State campus and having a grand old time. All that content's available. So this is actually being run at like Lewis and Clark, at Lincoln High School, Village Home, resource sites. So we actually have this curriculum. The instructor material is there, and people can just, you can run this anywhere you'd like. All the material that you need to run this curriculum is public. The other thread is the programming thread, and the idea here is a lot of them so a lot of these schools don't have computer science at all. So we try and teach them sort of the ideas of programming, and what we really want to impart is the idea that computer programming it's fraught with errors, right? Like, and you can't start to rely on code without understanding that a lot of code doesn't work. So that's one of the things that we try and talk to them about. So we start them out with Blockly, and then we go into Python programming with Turtle Graphics. And we talk to them about, you know, encapsulation and abstraction and sort of these software methods for managing complexity. And then they do a final project that includes a code walkthrough at a showcase. The third thread is the film thread. So we talk about the influence of movies historically on policy, and how it changes public perception that leads to things like laws changing. And then we talk about the techniques that are used within each of these films to get that emotional impact. Because if you develop an impactful film using all these different techniques, then that's where your highest lever of change can be as a cybersecurity professional. And so some of the movies that we have shown, we show The Imitation Game, we show War Games, just for the impact that these particular films have had on perception, and then we show Hidden Figures as well. So we also teach them the film methods, right? So a lot of them have never done any sort of filmmaking. They're shooting a lot of videos on their cell phones, but they're not really composing them the way that you would want to influence perception. So we talk about camera angles, camera movement, camera shot size and its effects. And then they get a daily film assignment that they're forced to incorporate themes of the camp, themes of security, themes of cryptography, perhaps, in a film that speaks about those topics. They edit and upload these things, and then we watch them and give them feedback. And then the last one is the cyber policy thread. So we talk about social and legal problems brought about by technology and the importance of having policymakers who know something about technology. I think we're lucky to have Ron Wyden as our senator, but not everybody is like that. Not every senator is like that, and they're voting on these things that might actually make things a lot worse. So we also focus on collaborative problem solving to address these policy issues. And so this speaks to the soft skills. We have to have students in this next generation to be able to go face to face with someone they completely disagree with and still find common ground. So we've completely lost that in today's fragmented filter bubble sort of makeup. And so with the cyber policy thread, we talk about constitutional law, surveillance programs, security versus privacy, spear phishing, and fake news, and how we need policies to manage all of this stuff. But we need policies that have all the stakeholders agree on what that policy is. And so what we do is we give them role dossiers of all the stakeholders in a debate. So for example, controlling fake news. Well, you have like the head of the NSA, the lawyer, the ACLU lawyer, the journalist. You have all these people with different views and different stakes in this problem, and then we have them learn their one dossier really well, and then they network with each other to find all of the information about all the other dossiers. So they have a good understanding of all the different stakeholders using the student mixer. And then we have this Cyber Summit, which is modeled after Barack Obama's Cyber Summit from 2014, where they do 9 rounds of alternating discussions to try and formulate policy, right? And so they go back and forth between caucusing with other students who have their same role to get more depth for what they need to be advocating. And then they go back to the negotiating table. And so we have 10 tables trying to develop 10 different policies to address a problem like fake news. And then we go through them after and talk about them. This leads to a pivot. So this is sort of the climax of the cyber policy / film thread, where it's a crisis situation modeled after the Cyber 912 competitions, which are undergraduate competitions, sort of like the Model UN is. And so they synthesize what they've learned into a 5-minute film that addresses the crisis, that addresses the policy concerns, in a video that we end up showing at the final showcase. So in the past, when Pokemon Go was the thing, 2 summers ago or 3 summers ago, we had this 0-day exploit that the NSA was using to track terrorists and criminal activity. And so is that good policy, or what is the sort of the trade-off between the privacy of a legitimate user versus trying to fight crime? So that was one of the pivots. Last year we did a nation-state attack on the 2018 election, which hopefully isn't going to be replayed this election. I don't know. Okay, so evaluation, we've been doing this for a while. 2014 and 2015, it was a cyber discovery camp. The last 3 years, it's been a Gen Cyber camp. It's offered to rising 10th grade students, and this is to give them time to take this content, go back to their high schools, and be able to sort of spread that, right, to those folks. These are the 10 schools from last July. If you have a freshman in any of these high schools, get them, these are likely going to be similar to the high schools who will be participating this coming year. Get them on the CyberPDX team, and we hope to see them in the summer if Gen Cyber gives us money for it. This is our results. So we have the 2016 and 2017 student survey results. So 60+% female, around 40-ish% ethnic minorities, and then 20 teachers each. So about 60 students every year do this. If you look at the ratings, they're above 4 in terms of they had fun, they learned a lot, they feel, what was the other one? They were glad they attended the camp. And this is what you want as a first experience in cybersecurity. And this is why the curriculum and the exercises were done the way they were, to get that first positive experience. In terms of comparison to other Gen Cyber camps, one of the things we do is we target underrepresented groups. So if you look at that first row, you see that for Gen Cyber participants, the pre-camp intent to pursue a career in cyber is lower than the national average, but we do more for the people than, if you look at the change between before camp and after camp, it's quite substantially higher than the national average. Yeah.
Do you do any sort of time based on that, where you ask them 2 weeks after taking it and ask them?
So, yes, in progress. A longitudinal study of students is currently in progress. We have someone from the School of Education who is going through IRB approval to do some tracking longer term, just to say, yes, this is the approach that we can say, for sure, well, not for sure, but it does seem to work, is the idea. Yep. Okay, so CyberPDX 2019, we're actually looking for sponsors just in case Gen Cyber cuts the budget. We're also looking for volunteers. We're trying to do an extra day at camp. We're trying to maintain our teacher stipends where Gen Cyber is trying to get us to basically cut them in half. The teacher program is essential for us. It's like it makes no sense if we're just teaching students. Like, we have to teach the teachers, otherwise the leverage is gone. We are trying to start up a YubiKey module. 2FA for all. So we're trying to raise money to get a whole bunch of YubiKeys and teach a YubiKey module, a two-factor authentication module in camp that we can then send teachers with this curriculum and a whole bunch of YubiKeys back to their high schools to get two-factor for all. And this is something that we're begging for money for, so this is why. And I'm begging on behalf of Ellie Harmon, who's our camp director. She couldn't make it today. But if you are interested in helping out, that's her email address there. This is a link to the site. And one last thing, I have a marketing slide. Sorry, it's a little bit of a sales pitch. I'm at Portland State. We're trying to hire new faculty. So if you know of anyone who's interested in a tenure track faculty position, that's the link. And then we have adjunct faculty positions available for teaching security courses. This is the list of courses that we have. If you are interested in offering other courses to influence the next generation of students, I'd be happy to talk to you about that. And then I'm also looking for, I'm chairing this Usenix Advances in Security Education. We're looking for submissions, so if you have something that you want to submit, that is there. And with that, I am done. The programming thread? Was it this one?
No. It was a very small link, like maybe 7
Oh, that one. Yeah. The curriculum. Yeah, crypto.cyberpdx.org. Hopefully it works. Let me know if that's down. Yeah. There is this informal learning program that NSF runs, and so we're applying to have this being done as an after-school program at like Reynolds High School. That's the one high school that we're thinking of. Sort of people who need an after-school experience, like maybe their parents are working and they have an after-school program and they want to learn something. This would be a curriculum that we could just drop in place and then have them run over the course of 5. Yeah. Yeah. After school. Middle school and younger, there are. Yeah. That's true. Yeah. We had ideas about doing maybe Parks and Rec. They might have programs that do that, or maybe even a Girl Scout. Yeah. So the curriculum is pretty portable. That you could probably run that. So, hey.
Sorry.
That's all right. You're next, right? Or wait,
Yeah,
no. Okay.
So, thanks very much. Sorry to cut off quickly, but we're on schedule. I've got a gift for you.